Reason number one was that I thought that teaching crisis professionals skills to take care of themselves when they walk knee deep in suffering on a regular basis is a nice and ethical thing to do, right? Number two is that majority of trauma professionals that I met on the road training were wonder people and strong and dedicated, and at the same time deeply burned out and depressed, you know? And number three, and the most important reason, was that I started realizing that something was really going on negative and wrong in my life and with me as I was spiraling into grips of vicarious trauma, which I know now it was vicarious trauma, you know? And vicarious trauma is basically a profound negative transformation of trauma professionals' inner experience as a result of constant interaction with other people's trauma. And at the high spectrum, at vicarious trauma symptomology is like post-traumatic stress disorder. So I was experiencing depression, anxiety, constant nightmares about survivor stories, right? Withdrawing from my family and friends because I couldn't share about all this suffering with them. Of what very excellent example of vicarious trauma symptomology. So I worked with, how to make it short. So I worked with the FBI team of people who are chasing online criminals who abuse children. So that their job 40 hours a week is to look at content, video content online of children being abused. So whenever I got there, and after I laid out what vicarious trauma is, what compassion fatigue is, how serious it is, what the symptoms are, one man there started sobbing. And he, by the way, he gave me permission to share this story. And he said that he doesn't trust anybody anymore. He doesn't believe he's doing enough in his job. He doesn't believe that he makes any difference in the world. He took he strongly encouraged his wife to stay home with the kids because he's afraid of her to going outside. He put his children into the, home study because he doesn't want them to be going to school. He put bars on their windows and on their doors. And so he said that through the years, he imprisoned himself and his family in his new world in which kids are constantly being abused. You see what I mean? So is it really true that kids 100% are getting abused in the world? No, but that was his reality. So when so people in interpersonal violence prevention movement often really have hard time with relationships, with trusting males, with dating, because all they see is, tremendous amount of pain and even murder as a result of somebody else's relationship. So it's like that. So basically you start seeing only pain, and the light of the spirit and the light of the world and the beauty of the world doesn't seep in anymore. The more strong vicarious trauma gets a hold of you.
I'm not sure that many of us considered ourselves trauma professionals until you just said that. But you're absolutely right. And so let me go back to what Lisa says. She says, I'm sort of assuming that hypervigilance for those of us working in this field is perhaps a sign or symptom of vicarious trauma and our worldview changing. Would you agree with that?
Yep. So intrusive imagery. So for example, constantly thinking about that client of yours that you helped, right? Not having nightmares about their experience, having nightmares about your experience. re-experiencing clients' trauma, especially since you have personal experience with that, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, sometimes you're taken into the time, like it just happened yesterday, like the loss of a child just happened yesterday, because you stepped into somebody else's reality, and it completely triggered you immediately to your own experience, right? So severe depression and anxiety, addiction, and so social withdrawal, isolation, kind of looking into yourself because you cannot face the world a lot of times, you know?
Yeah. Just going back a second, because we hear these terms: vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, burnout, compassion fatigue. So are they all just synonymous, or are there any differences?
A little bit of difference in the sense that, so I use vicarious trauma most often because it specifically states that it changes your worldview in 5 different life categories: trust of others, trust in myself, self-esteem, completely kills your self-esteem, control. So I cannot control what's going on in the world. I don't know what's going to happen to me. What happens to this baby if I'm pregnant, for example, right? Things like that. What happens to that other person that I'm working with? Will she be okay? Right? And it also creates a lot of withdrawal and isolation from the world. So meaning that people start having real troubles being emotionally and physically intimate with their partners, with their friends, with the world around them, so you're just building sort of a China wall around yourself more and more and more. And it so happens that the higher your symptomology, vicarious trauma symptomology, the more you're resistant to therapy, because really you don't want to talk about it. Inside, like really consciously or unconsciously, you don't want to, it's like if I open my mouth, I'm just gonna collapse, I just cannot handle all this pain. And also people tend to be really strongly dedicated to their work even more and more and more. So you start really overworking and really exposing yourself to this trauma over and over again. So now not only for 40 hours a week, now it's 80 hours a week, right?
Right.
And so, yeah.
And point where I kind of felt like, okay, I'm just going to have to learn how to cope with feeling like this, that I am, this is just the way life is going to be. And I've just got to figure out how to deal with it. And then a couple of years later, I heard someone say, you can recover, you can heal from PTSD. And I thought, that just it changed everything. Because then I thought, oh, really? I'm not going to have to feel like this for the rest of my life. And you take that even a little step further. And I've heard you talk about the prevention of vicarious trauma. So how do we prevent vicarious trauma when, the mission of our organizations is to support people who are living in the trauma that we experienced ourselves?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I studied it very thoroughly for a lot of years. And so what I learned, and what our whole movement of vicarious trauma prevention, resilience building people learned, that vicarious trauma is preventable. We don't have to suffer it. And if we're already experiencing it, it's okay. There are interventions and then preventions. So there are 3 vital steps for vicarious trauma prevention. Step number 1 is learning about it. Awareness raising. So really, really getting clear on what the risk factors are, what the protective factors are, how everybody on my team is experiencing that. Because so in the early 2000s, whenever everybody was talking about this self-care, let's go indulge ourselves, let's go get a massage and, you know, take a bath, and all of a sudden all of the vicarious trauma symptomology will just leave and go out of the window. Never in a million years did a bath solve our problems like that, you know. So it has to be more than that. It has to be very robust. It has to include various factors, self-care included, right? Nurturing our relationship around us, nurturing our relationship with us, because we are worth it. And we deserve feeling better, because this is not across the bay. Open the door, which I didn't see at all, because the concept of therapy never crossed my mind, you know, because I was seeing all these domestic violence survivors and in crisis, and they're dying, and that's trauma. Those people need therapy. My trauma happened a while ago. I'm managing, right? So would you like to continue managing, or would you like to feel better? So, and I tried something new, you know?
Yeah. I like that. Would you like to continue managing, or would you like to feel better? That's.
And this is the third step in the prevention process, which is organizational policies and procedures that create this vicarious trauma prevention and resiliency building. To have really strong foundation in vicarious trauma prevention and resiliency building, we have to have infrastructure, which means our hiring, firing, training policies need to reflect the fact that we recognize that vicarious trauma exists, you know, and provide people tools and to say, look, we know vicarious trauma exists. These are the symptoms. If you experience symptoms, it's okay. Your job is not at risk, but we have policies. We have people like employee assistance program, partnerships with local mental health communities, partnerships with local substance abuse communities, which can help you anonymously. So infrastructure set up. So basically it's like awareness, increasing help-seeking behavior, resiliency building through various initiatives. It's not only about providing excellent services whenever we are feeling well, but it's about us. It's okay to put ourselves first, and it's okay to say, look, I'm doing really hard work, you know, and it's kind of triggering sometimes, and it's okay, and I'm gonna choose me because I deserve a well balanced, thriving, flourishing life, you know, and I'm going to put myself first.
Yeah.